All right, today we're diving into a parable that is, frankly, as chilling as it is fascinating. The Sapphire Jester's Verdict. It's a dark story about identity, purpose, and a universe that's run by a monstrous, insatiable hunger. Let's get into it.
Wow. I mean, this quote just cuts right to the bone, doesn't it? It perfectly sets up the central conflict, what we believe we are, unique individuals with treasured identities, versus a horrifying reality where we're nothing more than fuel. And you're going to want to remember that word, lech. Seriously, it's the key to this whole twisted puzzle.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Where does this sermon of despair even happen? We're in a place called the Silent City, which sounds just as bleak as it is, nestled in the cold geometry of something called the Grand Architecture. And it's here that a crowd is about to hear a gospel that's unlike any other. So who's in this audience? They're called the Strivers. And you gotta feel for them. They're not just empty shells. They're weighed down by what the story calls the terror of being. Yet they're still hanging on. They have a spark of reason, they remember love, and most importantly, they believe their individuality is a treasure. And that belief, well, that's exactly what makes them the perfect target. And then this figure appears. He's called the Redeemed Judge, but also the Sapphire Jester. And let me tell you, that title, Redeemed Judge, is a sick joke. He isn't there to offer mercy or salvation. No way. His sole purpose is to preach something called the gospel of the belly. So what's his big message? Well, get ready for it. The Jester's verdict is basically that your very existence, your unique identity, is a flaw. He even has a special name for your identity, a fleeting error. Just let that sink in. He's telling these people that their consciousness, their name, their story, it's all just a bug in the software of the universe, a glitch that's messing up the perfect, silent void of the higher plan. And bugs, as we know, are meant to be eliminated.
And remember, he's a judge. But this isn't any court we'd recognize. His whole system is inverted, completely backwards. It's an anti-theology, where the one and only crime you can possibly commit is to exist as an individual. Being you is the offense.
And here's the justification straight from his mouth. The universe? It's a trap, a zero-sum game built on scarcity. So what does that mean for you? It means your life has no value on its own. Your one single purpose is to be consumed, to be metabolized into fuel for the evolution of some hungry god. So let's look closer at this gospel of the belly. This isn't just random cruelty, It's a fully formed belief system, a whole theology built around the idea of cosmic predation.
Okay, remember that word I told you to keep in mind? Lech. Here's the official definition. It's the spiritual energy, the very essence of a living thing. But here's the kick in the teeth. It's not for your enlightenment, not for salvation. It's just food. It's the fuel needed to power the monstrous, bottomless greed of an entity they call the all-consuming maw.
So how do they get this fuel? It's a chillingly simple three-step process. First, the crime. You dare to cling to your identity, your spark of reason. Second, the process, and this part is so twisted. Your individuality isn't just erased, it's used as seasoning. It makes the energy taste better, I guess. And finally, the result. All those unique, beautiful stories are just ground down into uniform ash. Here's a really powerful way to picture it. The all-consuming maw is like a blast furnace, and every soul is just a lump of coal. The furnace doesn't care about the history of the coal, where it came from, or what it looked like. It only cares about the energy it releases when it's completely destroyed. In this universe, that's all a soul is. Fuel. So the Jester has laid out this absolutely horrifying worldview. But honestly, the most disturbing part isn't the philosophy itself. It's that the crowd starts to accept it. They're actually converted to the gospel of their own annihilation. And that leads us to the question at the very hearts of this parable, the one that really gets under your skin. How could anyone be convinced to applaud their own chains, to actually beg for their own destruction? Well, the parable offers this brilliant, dark analogy. The Jester is a comedian performing for a starving audience. He doesn't offer them food. Instead, he gets on stage and tells them a joke. And the punchline is this: that terror of being, that deep, gnawing hunger you feel, that's not a problem to be solved. It's proof that you are the meal. He completely reframes their suffering as their ultimate purpose. And you can see just how terrifyingly effective his sermon is. Before he came, they had a spark of reason. After, it's just a fleeting error.
The hope for freedom becomes a weight that's just too heavy to carry. And in the end, they gladly trade their cherished identity for total totalitarian bondage, because you sold it to them as a form of peace. So, with the crowd completely converted, the parable reaches its horrifying climax. The verdict has been accepted, the sentence is about to be carried out. This is what they call the recurring harvest. The jester, his work now done, just watches with this wide, frozen grin. And, this is the key, because the crowd has given its consent, the sentence is passed. And then, it happens. The all-consuming maw descends from the heavens to collect what it's owed. The goal here is stark and absolute. It's the complete annihilation of individuality. The whole point is to convert the many distinct souls into one single, corrupt, but perfectly unified state, the ultimate expression of cosmic control. The parable ends with this incredibly stark image, the Sapphire Jester, standing all alone in the now truly silent city. His work is complete. His sapphire robes are literally pulsing with the stolen vitality, the harvested looch of an entire population that's been reduced to nothing more than data or food for the system. And so we're left with this final, provocative question. In a universe where the driving force isn't love or reason or hope, but just a bottomless, all-consuming hunger, what is the true value of a single soul?